What if poor social skills wasn't a weakness? What if your discomfort at parties or meetings isn't social anxiety, but something deeper? What if German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer saw it all coming 2 centuries ago? Because in his eyes, intelligence didn't guarantee charm or charisma. In fact, it almost guaranteed the opposite. Today, we're exploring why some of the most brilliant minds struggle with everyday conversation and how Schopenhauer's philosophy explains it all. Arthur Schopenhauer didn't like society, and he made no effort to hide it. While other philosophers were building careers in salons and lecture halls, Schopenhauer did the opposite. He scheduled his lectures to clash with Hegel's, knowing hardly anyone would show up. Only 5 showed up to the series. Instead of trying again, he walked away. Not out of spite, but because he believed real thinking didn't need a crowd. He wrote in Counsels and Maxims, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom." Schopenhauer didn't just find small talk boring, he thought it was social theater. To him, social niceties were all a performance. He wrote in Studies in Pessimism, "The real meaning of persona is a mask, such as actors were accustomed to wear on the ancient stage. And it is quite true that no one shows himself as he is, but wears his mask and plays his part. Indeed, the whole of our social arrangements may be likened to a perpetual comedy. And this is why a man who is worth anything finds society so insipid, while a blockhead is quite at home in it." In his view, the problem wasn't people, it was pretending. Most conversations felt like acts, not truth. He even said in Counsels and Maxims, intellectual conversation is only fit for intellectual society. To please others, it is absolutely necessary to be dull. So, to fit in, you have to flatten your thoughts. For a mind trained to notice everything, that wasn't just boring, it was painful. And the more intelligent you are, the more this hits. Your thoughts are fuller, more complex, and harder to squeeze into casual talk. You're not trying to be distant, you just can't pretend not to see what's there. As Schopenhauer put it in Parerga and Paralipomenia, most people are so constituted that they can look at what lies right in front of them without seeing it. But the intelligent person sees, and they can't unsee. That kind of awareness doesn't make social life easier, it makes it exhausting. The nervous smiles, the veiled insults, the forced laughter, most see a fun night out, but to someone like Schopenhauer, it's quiet desperation dressed up as conversation. He believed the problem wasn't social, it was metaphysical. At the core of all life, he said, is the will. Not a noble will, but a blind, restless force that drives us without reason or end. We think we choose, but really, we're just following the will's endless pull from one desire to the next. This turns everyday interaction into something else. We don't compliment to connect, we do it to be liked. We tell stories to impress. We agree to fit in. Most of it, Schopenhauer believed, isn't sincere, it's performance. And the intelligent person sees that. They see the strategy behind the smile. To touch even further, he refused to partake in what he referred to as empty amusements. Schopenhauer didn't just avoid people, he avoided pointless stimulation. He believed that when someone has nothing going on in their mind, they go looking for distraction. Cards, gambling, loud parties, whatever fills the silence. He once wrote in The Wisdom of Life, "Because people have no thoughts to deal in, they deal cards and try and win one another's money. Idiots." It was his way of saying that when the inner world is empty, people escape into noise. But for someone who's constantly thinking, the last thing they need is more chaos. They're not looking to be entertained. Their minds are already full, so the usual way people have fun just doesn't land. Not because the usual ways are no fun, but because they're not enough. And that brings us to something Schopenhauer knew very well. Solitude wasn't a phase for him, it was survival. He wasn't cold or superior, he was overwhelmed. Once you start seeing people's insecurities, fears, and motives so clearly, it's hard to unsee them. You're not just chatting. You're picking up everything underneath. And when the performance becomes too obvious, the game stops being worth playing. This connects with one of his deepest ideas, the principium individuationis. It means the belief that we're all separate individuals, each with our own path. But to Schopenhauer, that's just an illusion. Underneath it all, we're driven by the same force, the will. The same hunger, the same cycle of wanting and chasing. So all those personal goals we obsess over, the rise and fall, the wins and losses, they're just variations on the same loop. When you realize this, something strange happens. The chase starts to feel pointless. Why compete for things that are just echoes of the same desire? Why stress about standing out when even your uniqueness is part of a pattern? This isn't depression, it's perspective. You don't feel bigger, you feel smaller. Not in a bad way, just more honest. And with that honesty comes stillness, and from that stillness, Schopenhauer offers an escape. Not through success or approval, but through beauty. Through the aesthetic experience. The moment you lose yourself in a piece of music or work of art, not because it gets you ahead, but because it silences the will. In those moments, he wrote in The World as Will and Representation, we become a painless, will-less, timeless subject of knowledge. You are no longer striving, you're just seeing. But that kind of freedom doesn't happen in a crowd. It happens when everything else falls away, in the quiet, in reflection. He once said in The Wisdom of Life, there is no happiness on earth to compare with that which a beautiful and fruitful mind finds in a propitious hour in itself. That kind of happiness isn't loud, it doesn't need applause. It unfolds quietly, inwardly, and yet it is deeper than anything society offers. It is the kind of fulfillment that only those who are capable of being alone can experience. This is where Schopenhauer breaks away from the modern world completely. Today, we often treat social charm like it's proof of emotional intelligence. If you can network, lead meetings, and make people laugh, you're seen as successful. But Schopenhauer didn't buy into any of that. He warned us to be universally liked, one must be a mixture of mediocrity and hypocrisy. In other words, if everyone loves you, you're probably hiding something. Not because truth makes you unpleasant, but because it rarely fits inside of a crowd. He saw philosophical detachment as the strategy. So what's the solution? Give up on people? Go live in a cave? No. Schopenhauer's answer was something much quieter. Detachment. Not cold indifference, but calm independence. He wrote, happiness belongs to those who are sufficient unto themselves. That kind of peace doesn't need applause. It's built on knowing you're okay, even if no one claps. The Stoic believe something similar. You can't control what people say or how society spins around you, but you can decide what you let inside. And that's what detachment really means. It's not about giving up. It's about stepping back, seeing the noise without getting tangled in it, knowing you'll be judged, misunderstood, and maybe even ignored, and still choosing clarity over chaos. But Schopenhauer didn't use solitude as an excuse to look down on others. He knew the danger, that seeing too much can turn into bitterness, that detachment can slip into arrogance. The wise person doesn't use insight to separate, they use it to understand. Because once you see that everyone is driven by the same will, you don't feel superior, you feel connected. Not through social games, but through suffering. That's where his ethics begin. Not with rules or rewards, but with empathy. True morality, he believed, comes from this: feeling another's pain as if it were your own. And that kind of empathy grows in silence, in solitude. When you're no longer trying to impress everyone, you finally have the space to see them clearly, not as rival, but as reflections. It makes sense, then, that Schopenhauer was deeply drawn to Eastern philosophy. He read the Upanishads. He admired Buddhist thought. What they all shared was this: the path to peace doesn't run through power, it runs through surrender. You don't fix life by controlling it. You find peace by stepping outside the endless cycle of craving and competition. So maybe the people with poor social skills aren't lacking anything at all. Maybe they're just listening to something the rest of the room is trying to ignore. Maybe what looks like awkwardness is actually honesty. What feels like silence might be depth, and what seems like withdrawal could be the first step toward truth. He wasn't alone in this. Kierkegaard said, "Truth begins with the individual, not the crowd." Nietzsche believed most people follow the herd while the thinker walks alone. If you made it this far, then you already got it. You've felt the tension in social situations, you've questioned the noise, and maybe now you understand why. This isn't about fixing your social skills, it's about seeing them differently. So try it, 1 week. Let yourself step back, speak less, and think more. See what changes. And if this helped you feel seen, hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. We've got a lot more coming.